Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however, emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Nicky Price. Nicky lives in a little village about 40 kilometers, 25 miles outside of London with her family. After spending 25 plus years in corporate IT, Nicky knew she wanted to spend more time at home with her children, but part-time home-based jobs were hard to come by. So she decided to create her own. She began by teaching herself digital marketing, and initially, like most budding entrepreneurs, had little success in the first 2 years. This changed, however, and she was able to eventually rise above and make a full-time income from home. Once she gave up her IT job, things looked great at first. However, a series of life and death events over an 18-month period literally brought her to her knees. Usually a positive and happy person, Nicky found the emotion of what had happened all at once began to cripple her and was unsure where she would be going next and what exactly she should do. Nicky felt she had nowhere to turn, and the only help she could get for the sleepless nights and horrible anxiety was tranquilizers and sleeping pills, which she did not want to take. Nicky's recovery started when through an online friend, came across some free audios from Marissa Peer. Marissa, she found, had an incredible track record in literally transforming people's lives and has worked one-on-one with top athletes, pop stars, actors, and even royalty, and is the creator of Rapid Transformational Therapy System, or RTT. Once Nicky found more about how minds work, she became more interested and joined an intensive training course offered by Marissa and realized this is what she really wanted to do. Sadly, it coincided with the premature and apparent needless death of her best friend, and Nicky realized, though too late, what she learned from the course could have really helped her friend. Nicky started to read as well about neuroplasticity and found that it is proven to cause and affect change in the brain, and it confirmed that Marissa was on to something. Her passion for this field led her to graduate and has since gone on to attain skill in transformational coaching, neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, and the law of attraction. She is specializing in the areas of anxiety, career success, relationship issues, and inner confidence. The last few years have seen so much joy come into her life with the knowledge that she has helped so many clients through some amazing transformations. Nicky's practical knowledge and experience helps people who feel they are possibly stuck in life, underachieving, suffering from phobias, relationship challenges, anxiety, and so much more, utilizing rapid transformation therapy. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Nicky. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. Thanks. It's great to have you. So the first thing I want to ask you, Nicky, is, some people find this, most podcasts, they want to know something about the person. And I've been listening to podcasts for a long time, and it seems like they jump right to the meat of their lives, and they forget about the origins of where they came from. And the reason I talk about origins and why I think it's so important is I'm a huge Marvel fan. And if you listen to and you look at what's going on in the Marvel universe, right, in regards to how they've done it, and even Star Wars did it, they start in the middle, and then all of a sudden later on they have movies about how it all began, the origin. Well, really, at the end of the day, people need to understand the origin in order to connect with people into what they're doing today. So tell me your origin story and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you are at currently.
Wow, that's a very interesting question. And yeah, very interesting about where people start out, because actually that is the key. And I'll explain a bit more later. But actually, what goes on around us between the ages of 0 and 7 years old actually really does frame and create the blueprint, if you like, for our life. So my upbringing was, I'd like to say it was very normal, but to a lot of people it probably wasn't. I was brought up in hotels. My dad was a hotel manager, and so we moved a couple of times to hotels, and our, where we used to have our jelly and ice cream parties, they were in the function rooms of hotels. So we used to play tennis in there and hit the crystal chandeliers. So I guess it wasn't actually that typical, but it felt very normal at the time. And I had a very lovely mum and dad. Sadly they've both passed now, but they were both a very good age, and they were wartime children. So we did grow up with, I wouldn't say we grew up with scarcity by any any sort of imagination, but definitely they had that sort of air about them of the wartime scarcity. So every little scrap was always eaten from the fridge. And, we used to battle with my dad sort of right up until the end about him eating shriveled up carrots that were still in the bottom of the fridge, but that was just his mentality, and so different from today, really. They were very normal upbringing, but I do certainly, as I look back, I definitely recognize some traits of me always wanting freedom. Whatever the normal person did, I tended to do the opposite. And so I was always, my first job was very much along the lines of I wanted to work shift work so that, I could be on the beach or go shopping when nobody else was. So I guess I like my space, and yet I'm a very sociable person. I love people, but I also love my space, and I loved horses. I loved horse riding at the time, and just even looking at that, the freedom of being on the back of a horse galloping was just wonderful, as a child. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. So how did I get to where I am now? Well, I followed, I think, what so many people do, which is to follow kind of what society expects you to do. I got through school, I got through college, I got a good job. I then got married and had 2.2 children. The 0.2 is obviously the dog. I just kind of followed the path and did pretty well with IT. And it wasn't until right up into my, late 30s when I had my first child that I then started to think, actually, I'd really like to be spending more time with them. Your values just change. Anyone who's had a child knows that your values just change. Things just don't become as important as they were. Getting drunk after work in the city was not something I aspired to be when I had to be up at sort of 6 o'clock the next morning to deal with the children. And so that's when I started to look for something to work from home. And yeah, that was definitely a bit of a baptism of fire, going through all sorts of network marketing opportunities. And, I was sold the dream, what I haven't spent on courses and programs and online stuff. And it wasn't until I started to have success in certain areas, which was after 2 or 3 years, that I started to realize that actually it was nothing to do with the system. It was nothing to do with the program, or that had a little bit to do with it. It was all to do with your mindset. And once I started on that personal development journey, I realized how crucially significant that was when I started coaching people, because I could show people I could show two people the exact same strategy of how to do something that had worked for me, and one person would be able to do it and the other person just wouldn't. And that used to really make me sort of sit back and think, well, what is it that's different about these two people? They, to all intents and purposes, they look exactly the same. And yet it was just one had more desire than the other. One had more conditioning for success than the other. One expected to have success and the other one maybe not necessarily didn't. And so that kind of sparked my interest, if you like, in the way our minds work. But it wasn't until I had that, as you described in the bio you read out, it wasn't until I had that sort of horrible meltdown year. And I would describe that as a defining moment of, really what was going to happen next. And I truly believe that actually the universe will give you nudges for a while. And if you ignore those nudges that perhaps life isn't quite what it should be, if you ignore the fact that you're getting a bit bored, if you ignore the fact that you find yourself doing stuff on autopilot all the time without really having to think about what you're doing, if you ignore the fact that you're not feeling passionate about life and passionate about partners, friends, relationships, and if you just ignore all those signs and just think, well, that's the way it is, then one day, if you are meant to do more, the universe is just going to give you a massive good shake. And that's, I think, what happened to me. And it was, it was a year where a lot of things went wrong. In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't horrendous, but it was horrendous enough for me, having had a very sort of standard life. And that this year literally was my boss saying to me, after working part-time for the IT company as well as building my own digital marketing business, he said, Nikki, it's about time you came back full-time. And I said, oh, I had no intention of going back full-time. And so I said, oh, well, now's a good time to leave then. After promising you all these years that I would come back full-time, actually, I'm going to leave because my digital marketing business is doing really well. And, now I'm going to just build that. But then at the same time, my best friend became very ill. My father became very ill. My mum had just died a couple of years previously. My daughter was in and out of the doctor's surgery with frequent ear infections. Then I had a health challenge myself, and it was literally just one thing after the next. And I realized that once I gave up that cushion, if you like, of the part-time job that was a regular income, I suddenly looked at what I was doing and decided it just didn't feel good anymore. The digital marketing that I was doing was with affiliate programs that some people were putting in a lot of money. Then I got paid when they bought a commission. And I could just see that some of them were just never going to be able to do what I was doing. And it just didn't feel good anymore. So I thought, well, it's okay. I'll find something else. But of course, once you make that decision in your mind that you don't feel authentic, you don't feel right doing what you're doing, then you can't earn anything. Your income just massively takes a dive. So on top of everything else, on top of the illness that I had myself personally, I found myself just sinking deeper and deeper into this, I don't know what to do. And now the money's running out, and I've got all this going on. I'm ill, so I can't really go and get another job because I'd have to declare this. Nobody's going to want to hire me. So what the heck am I going to do? And it was a really tough time. And it affected my sleep. And for the first time ever, looking back, I realized I was suffering from anxiety, maybe even depression. And I just couldn't sleep. So my sleep was affected. And all the doctors could say was, sleeping tablets and antidepressants. And I really didn't want to do that. So that's what you were saying in the bio, that, literally I came across some audios from Marissa Peer, and long story short, I completely retrained, and that's how I got to where I am now.
Wow. Thank you. That's a great origin story. You did a great job of explaining it. I was writing notes down, and I try to stay cognizant of still listening. There's lots of things that I jotted down in regards to from your childhood all the way up to where you are now. One of the things I resonated with quite a few things that you said. I don't know. It sounds like you're an introverted person. Am I correct in saying that?
I think I'm an extroverted introvert.
Okay. I'd have to say that I'm probably about the same. I'm more introverted than I am extroverted. I've worked hard to be extroverted. But I'm the type of person that can only handle being in situations with lots of people for, so long before I feel like somebody's drained all my battery juice out. And so the reason I ask that is because I find people that are more introverted just from, my lifetime, especially with my financial planning practice and my clients. I find a lot of my clients that are suffering from anxiety and depression seem to be introverted. Doesn't mean that extroverted people can't be. I just found, just from conversations with them, because I do a lot of intense goal setting and have conversations to help them with their 6 inches between their ears. It's not just about money, it's about the relationship. So that's why I had asked that. But you also mentioned that your passion had died and you weren't sure where you were going to go. I know myself, I've been there many, many times. It's so easy. Passion and purpose tie together, right? So if you don't have a passion, what you're doing seems to lose its purpose. And we just seem to be like on that hamster wheel. We're chasing ourselves. We get off once in a while to have a drink and something to eat, and then we jump back on. So you seem to have obviously gotten past all of that. In regards to the universe sends us signals. For me, I believe things happen for you, not to you, right? I'm a Christian, so I believe God is basically giving you what you deserve to have. You just have to be aware of it and choose to pivot and move forward. And you've done that tremendously. Yes, I talked about it in the bio. You did even a better job explaining it, just the things that you've done, from working part-time, amazing. And then you had a side hustle with your digital marketing, and that replaced your income. And congratulations, right? A lot of people aren't able to do that. They don't realize that their 9 to 5 job, 8 to 5, whatever hours they work, they need to use that money to fuel their passion for something else, that purpose that they're looking to serve out into the universe, and literally use that to drive what they want until that driver, that side hustle, replaces your income. And you're a prime example of somebody that's done that. And the perfect person for listeners to grasp the fact that you too can live life on purpose, not by accident, but it has to start somewhere. I get so many people that, I don't know if you can concur this for this, but people will just they'll find something they're interested in. They have no business skills whatsoever. They want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't really know the ins and outs of being an entrepreneur. So they quit their jobs and they start full time. They and I've had so many examples of it through my own career of my clients. And they'll quit their jobs. They'll put a lien on their house, like they'll take loans out against their house. They'll buy a franchise, or they'll start this business, and it all crumbles because they've got no game plan. They have no mentorship. They have no connection. So my question would be, you found, what was her name again? Marissa? Yes, Marissa. You had found her and you found her courses. How important has mentorship been for you throughout this whole process and coaching?
I think mentorship and personal development and coaching has a massive part to play in anybody's development, because the one thing that I felt kind of all the way through this personal development and entrepreneurial side of me, if you like, is that, and it's another kind of nudge from the universe, you start to feel a little bit isolated. When you're working from home, you have this sense of, I know I can do this. There's something inside of me. And actually, I know this is all to do with masculine and feminine energy, which is completely different. But you have this intuition inside you that you know that you're here for more. And that, men have feminine energy as well as masculine energy. We both have a mixture of both. But when you have that, masculine energy is very much process driven, works very well in the corporate environment, strategies, processes, you have to have that in order to build a successful business. But when you're feeling like there's something inside of you that you really want to create, that you want to bring out, and you just don't know what it is, that is, that I find in so many women. And they just know that what it is they're in the masculine world too much. And so they're in this process of doing and not being who they're supposed to be. Our creativity comes from our sort of stomach area, if you like, where our emotions are stored. And when we are able to bring that out and follow our heart's true desire, then we are on sort of purpose, if you like, with our inner core values. And that's the important thing. But our inner core values and who we believe that we are is a pattern that we have set, this blueprint from the ages of 0 to 7 years old. So, you know, this is the stuff that I really wished we'd been taught at school. That the fact that between the ages of 0 and 7 years old, you're actually in hypnosis brainwaves. Did you even know that?
Oh.
So 0 to 7 years old, you are in theta brainwaves, which is the light trance that I take people into in hypnosis. So if you think of your brain as a computer, 0 to 7 years old, that is your programming. So you're not able to deal with your own emotions. You look around you for how to behave and how to react for things. And therefore, if you think about the things that were going on around you at that time, both in behavioralisms from perhaps your parents or your caregivers, what their attitudes were to money, what their attitudes were to relationships, their health, their self-care, everything, you would have absorbed that belief about yourself based on what was going on around you. And so that's the thing that most people don't understand. And why would they? You know, because it's not something that's ever taught to us, is it? It's not something that we're ever, you know, spoken about. But during that time, it creates a blueprint. And this is literally neural pathways in your brain. And so when later on, you know, so the clients that come to me, they come to me with blocks to what it is they want to do. They say they have anxiety, they have depression, they have phobias. You're not born with those. Nobody is born with those. You're born fully believing that you are completely whole and that everything is available to you, and it always will be. You know, when you see a baby attempting to do something like climb the stairs or walk, they never give up because they believe in themselves 100% that they're going to do it, because that's how we're born. And, you know, if you look at a baby in front of a mirror, they don't look at themselves and say, oh my gosh, I look fat in this nappy. They don't care, you know, they just smile and they're just happy. And until something makes them realize that actually all is not well. And of course, there's going to be something. As parents, we can't be there for our babies, our children, every minute of the day and say, it's okay, we love you, we love you. You know, we can't possibly do that. But every time we perhaps turn our back on a child, or, you know, without realizing it, we've all completely messed up our kids by not being there for them in those first 7 years when the programming is done. And so we form these beliefs about ourselves, and some of them are very, very outdated, as you can imagine. But that is the patterns of behavior that then become traits. So when people come to me, one of my favorite fixes, if you like, is people who come to me and say, I can't find love. I always attract the wrong sort of relationship. I'm a people pleaser, or, you know, I attract emotionally unavailable men, or I attract narcissists. You know, I just seem to attract the same sort of person. And, you know, they'll say, oh, I know when it was, you know, my first or second relationship, or, you know, later on, that relationship went bad. And actually what they're telling me is that was the trigger. So that's the second or third item, but they think that's the root cause. The root cause is almost always something that happened between the ages of 0 and 7 years old. Always. And, you know, unless I've regressed back to 0 to 7 years old and got a scene, it's, you know, it's not a fix for me. It's always between 0 and 7 years old. And so there will be some reason, you know, that's happened that has made that child feel like, you know, when you question them and then you say, okay, take me back to a scene that is all to do with this feeling of not feeling lovable, not feeling like worthy of a relationship. And they will take you back to a scene where perhaps their mum or dad has had a fight or a row. And you say, child, you know, to that child, that 3-year-old child, what belief have you just formed right in your head right now. Because they're talking as if they're there. They say, oh, I must always be on my own. I never want to be married. I must never go through this. When they hear themselves actually say that out loud, because they do, they're only in a light trance, but they're in the scene and they're kind of witnessing it, and they say it and they just say, oh my goodness. And they realize the pattern that the mind has stored. And that's what the mind does. The mind will create, if it feels that you're at threat, or if you shouldn't be with someone because your life might be at threat, or you might be rejected. That's a huge one. Rejection is just a massive one. Then the mind will just step in and literally cause havoc. It will sabotage any attempt at you creating what it is you think that you want. And that's the way our minds work.
Yeah, it's you talk about what our pattern and our imprinting that happens from childhood. I do know quite a bit about it in this, now that I listen to you speak about it. And I see that pattern even with my children because, divorced dad of 5 kids now, all adults. I've seen the pattern behaviors that were instilled to them through the most troubled times of their mom and I, in court, stuff like that, or, things that they learned from other adults in their lives. And I completely agree, they literally get imprinted into their brain. And as an adult now in my early 50s, I look back and think of some of the things that have happened in my life. The more that I learn about, why I've had, you even mentioned it, people get into relationships with, it happens to men too. I've been in relationships with more than one narcissistic woman, or broken, because of their past and their learned behaviors. And then they learned new patterns and behaviors, even though they're not 0 to 7, they learn new patterns and behaviors from their relationships that they're in. And I call that baggage. Everybody's got their baggage right from childhood all the way up. And our school systems have failed us absolutely miserably in regards to, and I'm going to jump forward to one of the questions I have there. You, like me, believe our schools should teach about mindset and how our minds work. How exactly do you see this eventually happening? And at what age do you believe this would be the most effective to start at?
Well, if you think our minds are in programming stage from 0 to 7, it would be quite handy to learn it in that time. But how much is actually taken in during that time? But, there is one thing that I think every child should be taught, and this could be taught to them from a very, very early age. And actually, children do it naturally, which is why I just think we should build on it. And that is that our mind, you can't control any of the circumstances that go on around you. Circumstances are going to happen. It's just part of life. But you can control how you react. That is what you can control. And the way that you react is down to your patterning, your beliefs about yourself, but also it's about what you let into your mind. And your mind the only 2 things in the whole world that you can truly control is the pictures that you put into your own mind, and also the words that you say to yourself, because it is your thoughts and the pictures that create the actions that you take, and it is the actions that are going to denote what sort of outcome you're going to get. So it's the thoughts and the feelings that you apply to those thoughts, your emotions. That's what emotions are: energy in motion. That's what, when you're moving that thought out into the universe, because we are just energetic human beings at the end of the day. And that would take me on a whole different pathway of quantum physics and how the world works.
Yeah.
Woo-woo, it is a very scientific background to all that.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, we had discussed that that the teaching should start at a very young age, but unfortunately, it doesn't. And really, when you think about it, how would a school system even implement it when the educators or teachers, and no disrespect to teachers, um, I have family that are teachers and I have clients that are teachers, they bring in their own chips on their shoulders from their own childhoods and adulthoods, their family lives. People think, oh, I can keep family at home and I can keep business separate. But I don't agree with that. I don't think that's possible. People try really hard. So how do our educators go and teach our children, even from, from 0 to 7? Where do you pick an age where they're going to be able to effectively teach when they're broken themselves? So they could put a system together, the education system. I've thought about this lots. There's a group of us that talk about it. And you have people that the teachers will maybe read from a curriculum that is put together to teach people about emotional and mental state and how to deal with things and how to cope, but it's read off a script. It's not really heartfelt. As children, they pick up on our emotions more than anybody. So it's only going to resonate with so many kids. I'm not saying they shouldn't effectively try it, because I think it should be, they should try to do it. So in a classroom of 30 kids, if 10 kids it works for, that's 10 more than it's working for right now. And I see the education system as struggling too, even if they could effectively teach it. Where do the children go at the end of the day? They go back to either a happy or a sad or a broken or a depressed family life. Now maybe they're going back to a divorced family situation and remarriages. And I see and experience that through all my family and clients, and even myself. I went through it when my kids were growing up before I became a full-time 100% parent of them. The other parents messed them up. Now spin that back to the fact that they come from, they're in a broken situation going between two houses. My kids used to call themselves suitcase kids, living out of suitcases, going from mom's house for that week and then dad's house and back and forth. Then they bring that to the school, that, they're all clouded in their brain. Now their teacher, who's broken themselves, tries to teach it. And I can't see an effective way for a school system to integrate it if society doesn't adapt and grow along with it. When we have such a social media platform that is so negative, standard media that is so negative, and I get why they do that. It's all about advertising and it's about dollar. The human condition has become so low on the totem pole of society looking at people's health. I just don't see the school systems being able to effectively implement it. I used to be, and I'm very much an optimist, but when you delve into it and you start talking to teachers, and then you look at all the things that are happening in the background with families, the divorce rate, you look at the fact of bullying. Everybody thinks bullying's gotten better. No, it hasn't. Bullying's gotten worse in the school systems, because now you got social media and keyboard warriors. They get to destroy young children at a very young age. And I have a couple of my children that happened to, at the advent of social media getting so popular in about 2013, 14, and it destroyed a couple of my kids, and they're still suffering today because of it. And even as adults, people are bullies. So my next thing that I would like to ask you about is, you speak of rules of the mind and help people understand why they have phobias, abundance blocks, anxiety, depression, lack of confidence, fear of rejection, relationship issues. Can you tell the listeners more about these rules you speak of?
Well, there's basic sort of primal mind, because actually our minds and our brains have only really evolved about 1% since our tribal days. And so, when you understand that, then you might start to understand that there's some things that we are just hardwired to do. And so the things that we are hardwired to do is we must fit in to our tribe. We must feel like we, are socially fitting in with people. We must feel like we're enough. We must feel like our parents are not going to reject us. because rejection of, and this is actually one reason why, if you think about any time you might have been rejected in your life, in a love affair, in a job, in a social situation, our minds take rejection incredibly seriously. Because in the old days, in the tribal days, rejection out of your tribe would have meant death. So of course our mind is going to take that seriously. It's going to take it way more seriously than you having a happy moment, because a happy moment just thinks, yep, that's fine, don't need to store that. Rejection, oh my goodness, need to store that. This must never happen again. We will stop this person from ever feeling that need for rejection again. And so this is why so many people hold themselves back from putting themselves out there. It is the fear of rejection. It is the fear of not fitting in and being, feeling like they're not enough, not worthy. Those are all sort of core beliefs that the mind must have in order to fully operate, in an abundant way. And so let's talk about anxiety and depression then, as you mentioned those. Those are probably the biggest issues we have right now. And it fills my practice around, anxiety and depression. And I'm glad, because I can help these people. Because when you understand what anxiety is, most people say, I have anxiety. And they believe, when you question them, it's something I've had since as far back as I can remember. And I don't believe I can ever be free of it. I've tried everything. They really genuinely think, this is me. This is who I am. I am an anxious person. It's hereditary. My mum was, my dad was, or I'm a depressed person. My parents were. Absolute, I won't swear, but begins with B and ends in S, right? It doesn't. You may well have a parent that was depressed or anxious. You may well have taken on those traits by living around them and taking on their traits. But epigenetics has proved that you can actually change any part of, your predispositioning, whatever your predisposition to, you can change it through the power of your thought. Our minds are so way more stronger and more powerful than we can possibly imagine. And, we hardly utilize much of our brain at all. And our brain is so much more powerful. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is, anyone who suffers from anxiety knows that it's not something that it's to be joke. It really is no joke at all. It in its worst and most extreme state, then it's panic attacks, and it is literally something that happens so fast and comes on so quickly. You couldn't talk your way out of it like they try and tell you in talk therapy. You can talk your way out of it, breathe your way out of it, breathe through it, go and do something happy. All those sort of things work if it's just a mild sort of bit of anxiety, because all you need to do is shift your state of mind for 2 minutes and you can get out of that anxiety. But when you're on a full-on panic attack, there's nothing that is going to work for you. And the reason that is happening is that the amygdala at the base of your brain is just literally firing up that fight or flight mechanism way too fast for you to even consider what the thought that came before that was. So it's like, so the amygdala firing up is your fight or flight mechanism. That is what anxiety is. It's there to be listened to. Your mind is trying to say, listen, there is something around here that is going on right now that is making me feel really unsafe. Okay. So you can look around and you think, well, there isn't anything here, but your mind has detected a trigger from something that's way back. So say, for example, I use the example of 2 9-year-old girls walking down the road. Maybe a dog runs towards them. One girl reacts and screams and runs away. The other one bends down and strokes the dog. What's the difference? They both saw the exact same thing. Well, it's the patterning. So perhaps one has been bitten by a dog in the past. The other one has a dog, so she's much more comfortable with it. So her belief is that it's safe. This second one has been bitten in the past. This dog is running towards her. So the mind says, this is not safe, run away. Fight or flight mechanism comes in, adrenaline gets pumped to the legs, cortisol comes, everything. The blood is just, firing down to the legs to literally fight or flight. And the child is able to run. But what will then happen is your mind is kind of a bit of a drama queen, because the next time somebody even runs towards her, the fight or flight mechanism is going to say, hang on a minute, last time it was a dog running towards you, we didn't like that, the dog bit you. And it does this chain of neural pathway chain of looping thoughts that then takes you spiraling down so fast. The more you allow it, the more it happens, then the faster that is going to go. So every time you allow that to happen, it's going to get faster and faster until you can't even think what on earth the thought was, or what it was that was going around that triggered that feeling. And so through RTT, when it's got to the point where it is so fast, then that is the time to come and see me, because there's not much else that's going to help you, because in RTT, what we do, it will take you back to the very first scene that you felt unsafe. And then we link the scenes together, we reframe them, and we literally break the neural pathways in the mind and reframe them with something way more useful. And that's why RTT is so super effective for anxiety. So anxiety is essentially living in the future. You're always thinking, what if, what if, what if? Depression, on the other hand, if you want to simplify it, is living in the past. You're ruminating about things that have gone on in the past over and over. And, I say to people with depression, what if, if you fell over and you hurt your knee, the last thing on earth you would do is then stab your knee with a pair of scissors. Just wouldn't do it to yourself. It's crazy. You would put a Band-Aid on it and you would try and heal yourself. And yet when we have a sadness of event, or we've done something stupid and we've messed up, we then go and ruminate over it and we beat ourselves up. You stupid, how could you have been so stupid to do that? And all you're doing is reinforcing. That is the scissors in the knee. That is what you're doing every time you go over that past and say, oh, that was really stupid. Why on earth did you do that? I can't believe you've done that. And every time you say something really nasty to yourself, your mind's listening. And the very latest research, there's an awful lot of research going on at the moment about depression and anxiety, but the very latest research into depression has made a very big link between depression and the harsh and critical words that you say to yourself. So it's your inner dialogue that is going on all the time. This is the stuff I want them to teach at school. That, if you literally chastise yourself every single day, if you pull yourself down, then your mind's just going to withdraw, contract, 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 because it doesn't want to put you out there anymore for fear of rejection, for fear of making you feel any worse. So you literally just shrink down. And what happens when you shrink down like that, your energetic vibration, your aura, essentially, literally just contracts down as well. So we've all been around people where you kind of walk up and you go, oh, it's a great vibe in here. Or, oh, it was a really miserable vibe in there. I just wanted to get away from that person. That is your energetic vibration that is detectable by others. And so the low level vibrations are all those ones: depression, and feeling angry, feeling sad, feeling guilty. All the ones that you would imagine are low level vibrations truly are. So what are the high level vibrations? They are love, joy, gratitude. So all the ones that you would imagine to be high, but gratitude is right on up there at the top. So that's a really, really good way to shift your way. If you're feeling low and feeling depressed, a lot of the time, start keeping a gratitude journal. Start thinking what it is that actually does make you happy. Start getting to grips with what you actually want. Start planning the future rather than looking at the past all the time. So obviously, both of those are a lot more detailed than that, but essentially depression is living in the past. Anxiety is living in the future. You have to live in the now. So the way to bring yourself back into the now is your breathing, being out in nature, and gratitude. Gratitude for everything that's going on around you right now. But when you're suffering pangs of anxiety, if it's at a low level and you can question it, you have to turn towards the things that you don't like about yourself. You can't suppress them down. You have to turn towards them, open them and say, okay, what's this about? Anxiety, right, you're trying to warn me of something here. I'm looking around. There is nothing here that is unsafe, so you can stop. And that's it. Once you do that enough times, your mind will eventually get it. but you have to do it. And sometimes it's far quicker to do it under RTT and under hypnosis, because when you're under hypnosis, it goes straight into the power of your subconscious mind. So your subconscious mind is 95% of your mind, and your conscious mind is only 5%. So if you're trying to make change in your life and you're doing it from your conscious mind, and you're saying, yeah, so this is the problem with like the law of attraction and stuff like that, where people are just told to think positively. So even the people that feel like they are getting a bit of an education about how to improve their life, they're told to do positive affirmations, to look at the law of attraction, and to just kind of write everything down, believe it, believe it, believe it, say it enough to themselves, and then they're going to get it. And then it doesn't happen. And they go, well, that doesn't work. And so it gets, this sort of education gets thrown out before it's even started. And that's because if you are trying to change something from your conscious mind and you're doing these positive affirmations from your conscious mind, but deep down you made a belief at 5 years old that actually rich people were mean and you should never have money, because every time you watched anything on the TV, it was Robin Hood or Cinderella. All the rich people were horrible, mean people. And this was being put into you every single day with everything you watched. And your parents said money doesn't grow on trees and we have to work hard for our money. That is the messaging you were got. And so, when you get to the point where you want more money in your life, in your conscious mind, you're saying, I want to earn £10,000 a month. I want this, and this is what I want. And your subconscious mind is going, no, you can't have that because rich people are mean and you don't want to be mean. So we're not going to do that. And that's what happens. 95% of your mind is way stronger than the 5% of your conscious mind. So when you want to really create change, you have to look at what your patterns are. And you can do this manually. It's not something that you have to have RTT for. You can do this manually. If you really kind of go into meditation, breathe deeply into your stomach area, which is where, if you imagine your breath down there, that is where all your emotions are. And you start looking at the statements that you want. So say, for example, you did want £10,000 a month. What comes up for you when you say that? You just need to listen. So you say, right, I can earn £10,000 a month. What comes up? If a little voice immediately comes up and says, no, you can't earn that. You're not worthy. Listen to what comes up and then move it down a figure. Okay, I want to earn £5,000. And your mind goes, yeah, we can do that. We've done that before. We can do that. Then you know where your main gap is between the 5 and 10. So what is it that needs to change about yourself? What is it that you're feeling unworthy about? What is it you're feeling not authentic about? What is it about that there is some belief about yourself that you believe that you're not worthy of earning that difference, or that you think rich people are bad? So there's always a contradiction, and that has emotion. In the battle of emotion and logic, emotion is going to win every time, and your emotion is there stored in your subconscious mind with the trauma of whatever it was that happened. And I say trauma could be a major trauma like an abuse, or it just could be a small trauma. It's all trauma that is stored in your body and reminded by your mind over and over. And that's how it works.
Yeah, wow. That's amazing information. You talked a lot about many different things, but one of the things that, anxiety, living in the future, depression, living in the past, and we have so many self-limiting beliefs that are created. Like you said, it could be something small, it could be something large. And you talked about, just recently in our conversation about the amygdala and how it triggers. And it can be like that. You can go into a anxiety state and you don't know why, and you can't even react to it. I have a daughter that suffers from that, can, and be triggered by a word. Or even I found even people that have severe anxiety, or, not necessarily depression. I see people that have severe anxiety issues triggered by music, triggered by something they'll see on TV, or a conversation somebody's having where it's not even directed at them. They might even just be listening to it, but they take it personal, they trigger. And I completely agree. It is such a problem in our society today, especially with COVID now. Depression and anxiety seems to have gone through the roof because people are locked into their houses and they don't have that distraction. They're not taught how to be at-home workers.
Sorry to interrupt, but you know what that is? While people are at home and whilst the depression and the anxiety are going through the roof, it's because whilst we're in our homes, if you're living on your own, you're being really forced to sit with yourself and really forced to look at yourself. And you'll see that the ones who are really not dealing with that very well are the ones that normally are people pleasing, permanently busy, running around so that they don't have to sit with themselves. And so when that's taken away and they can't be the person that sorts everybody else out, they can't be that person that's people pleasing, helping, doing stuff, keeping busy, always running around going, oh, I'm too busy, I'm too stressed. When they're having to take that time, it's because they don't like what they see. And until you really are comfortable with yourself internally, you can never truly live the life that you want, because what you have inside is what is reflected out. That is literally your energetic vibration, and what you dish out is what you get back. So when you're dishing out a low level vibration, that is what you're attracting into your life. If you are feeling and emitting this low level vibration, you're going to attract bullies. You're going to attract people who take advantage of you all the time. You're going to attract the wrong relationships. And then you're going to play that over and over by saying, why does this always happen to me? And you're asking all the wrong questions because you're focusing on what you don't want instead of what you do want. Because where you put your energy and your focus, that is what you get more of. I don't know, have you heard of Tony Robbins?
Oh, of course. I've actually been to private events with Tony Robbins. So like not the 3,000 people. I've been to ones where very private events where I've actually heard him speak for 5 hours straight, just to a small group of us. So yeah, I know him very, very well. So
talk about the car story, going to a crash. So a car on a skid in the ice, probably a lot of ice where you are. And he said, you know, if you're in a skid and going on the ice and you're suddenly aiming towards a tree, he said 98% of people behind that wheel would be saying, I mustn't hit that tree. I mustn't hit that tree. I mustn't hit that tree. So 2% of people who know how to manage their mind would immediately shift their focus to the road and say, that's where I want to be. And they will manage to avoid the tree because they're shifting their focus, not on the tree, because the mind doesn't recognize negatives. It emits a frequency. And so the frequency is tree, tree, tree. Yeah. And focusing. Whereas if you say road, 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 you're not saying not tree, not tree, not tree. You're shifting the focus. And that is probably one of the biggest messages for people. Never focus on what you don't want, because even when you're focusing on the lack of something in your life, the lack of money, the lack of a relationship. When you focus on the lack, you're going to attract more lack. That's what you're putting your energy and your focus on. When you understand that the world is energy, it makes a lot more sense.
Well, yeah, you bring up so many valid points to the listeners. I would definitely start this when we're done. Start listening to this over again and take notes. There's lots of nuggets of great information. And reach out to Nicky. And if you don't feel comfortable, reach out to me and I'll connect you. So, what would you say in your life are some things that you wish you had done better on the road to where you're currently at?
I think it's very hard to say what I would have done better, because I truly believe that you get to where you're going as a result of what you've learned along the way. So, you know, I could say I really didn't like that year, you know, that year where everything went wrong and I lost my best friend. I could say that I really wished I hadn't spent the time out in the sun so I didn't get skin cancer. I could say I really wished that I'd spent more time with my friend in the year prior to her death. But it doesn't, you know, there is no point ruminating about the past. As long as you see that your life is a journey, you know, and I was saying this to my group the other day, that if you're in a car traveling down a road and you're seeing this as your life journey as the road, are you in the driver's seat or are you in the passenger seat? Because if you are allowing life to happen to you and you're just reacting each day, you're in the passenger seat. of the car of your life. Get into the driver's seat and sit down. Most people spend more time just planning their annual holiday than they do planning their life and focusing on where they want to be. So, you know, in the key areas of like your career, your health, your relationships, your finances, those 4 key areas, what does a perfect 10 out of 10 look like? And, you know, if you can map that out, most people can't do that. They go, oh, I don't know. And because they don't visualize things, so they're always going to be contracted down because you can never see what is actually possible. But, you know, map out what a perfect 10 is, and then where are you on that? And if you're in a level 2 in something that you're saying is very important to you, like you want a relationship, this is what a perfect 10 relationship looks like, but actually here you are at a number 2, what are you doing about it? You know, where's your focus? And are you focusing just on the lack of it all the time? Or are you taking a positive step to what you could do to get you to a 3 and then a 4 and then a 5? Because once you start to put your energy and focus on the end destination and not on the lack of it, then you're going to stand a much better chance of achieving. So yeah, there's loads of things I've done wrong in my life. And, you know, I think my only wish is that I'd learned what I've learned now whilst my kids were young.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to hear. I get so many different answers, but you know, that's why I've made it my mission and decided to rebrand and pivot this year in regards to what I've been teaching already, because I do a lot of relationship emotional training with my clients before I ever get to the end result of a product. So when you mention those 4 areas, I actually work on that because I tell people let's figure out where you're currently at, not stay fixated on that. We're going to work on being solution orientated as a person and look at your future and plan forward. But I want to teach you how to live life like what people would call an elevator pitch. I tell people today, I want to help you live better, live more comfortably, retire in comfort and die with dignity, and teach you along the way how to live life on purpose, not by accident, and not to be reactive every single day of your life. And, I'm not perfect. I've been there, and I use my life lessons, right? My life lessons have created wisdom that I can instill upon you and every single person I meet. That adds to my repertoire of things that I can utilize as stories, because I find helping people get past their reactive state, storytelling is so important. So if I can pull from my vast array of what other people have gone through and help them relate to it and realize that they can't, that they can get out of the fact of being stuck where they've been stuck all the time, and I send them to people to get help if it's severe and I can notice it. I'll recommend obviously to get some actual counseling, so they don't have to feel like they're stuck in living life by an accident. I know one of the things that I've seen with my clients over the years is the fact that, they, like you said, people dwell in the past, they live in the past, and it's so difficult because even after I start helping them goal set for their life, and I'm not talking just goal setting for finances, what do you actually want out of your life? You're miserable at your job. I can, this is a second or third appointment with them, and I'll say you're miserable at your job. What's your family life like? I will ask them that. Husband and wife, individual. Obviously, I got to gauge if I can get away with that. Not everybody you can say, well, do you mind me asking what's your family life like, right? Obviously, tonality and how I deliver it is important because it can trigger people, like you were talking about, that person that suffers from anxiety. If I say the wrong thing, I'm just putting them into that anxious state. And now the meeting's closed down. And now I've failed them. They haven't failed themselves. They're stuck into that reactive state that they've learned behavior. So I've had to work on that. I work on keeping my state and being able to realize where I'm at so I can be at the right state of mind when I'm dealing with people, because really at the end of the day, we have a responsibility as individuals that get it, that we understand what you're talking about and what you teach, when we start accepting that, we have, in my opinion, the responsibility to educate and communicate. Don't pretend you're the expert at it, but know it well enough that you can acknowledge it, listen, and redirect people so that they can get help, so that they can live a life on purpose. I don't think I'm the end all and be all, that I know it all. But what I do know is that I can listen, I can build relationships, and I can direct people to, live a life that is more purposeful, right? Live a life of where they're not always reactive and feeling, like I always say, I lived so many of my years of my life in quiet desperation, Nikki, right? And one of the things I was going to mention earlier too is we can do all this stuff and we can learn how to, understand our triggers. We can learn how to change our state. One of the things I tell people that they have to change, though, and to the listeners that have, my loyal listeners and people that have been following my video logs for this last year, people need to effectively change their associations today. And associations are so much more than just the association of people. It's the association of the media that they listen to. It's the associations of the books they read or listen to, or the podcasts, the music. It is so much more in depth of all the different outside triggers that we have, that we can do all the things and they can sit down with you. But if they're a person that is constantly listening to depressing music or depressing podcasts or books, or they watch the news. I have clients that watch the news 2-3 times a day, and especially with COVID, they wonder why they're sad. It's just, I constantly tell people the first thing you need to work on, besides, yourself, obviously, and learning how to change your state when you're triggered, is you need to take out the negative things that are constantly barraging you. You have to realize that you can blame everybody else, but the 3 fingers are pointing back at you. You have to work on the fact of your associations. And so many people just don't get it. And they constantly feed themselves. They work on the side. They'll go to counseling. I have it with my own family. And I've been there myself when I used to live in quiet desperation before I learned everything that I've learned. And until I had somebody one day say to me, you know what, you're working on all this stuff. Tell me what your normal life's like. And we had a conversation, and they said to me, well, your associations suck. You need to change your associations and who you're hanging out with. You need to have a different level of networking of people and connections. And you need to do, they laid out a whole bunch of stuff. And this was a very successful person. So success leaves clues. This person had had similar situations. I'd known them for years, and all of a sudden their life just went like that, but they didn't really necessarily share until I had a conversation. So my point for that is that you have a responsibility in society, in my opinion, obviously not everybody's going to agree with it, that when you learn to become a better version of yourself and effectively control your state, your associations, when other people are suffering, if they're, if you can even see a glimmer of the fact that they want to change, have a conversation with them, reach out to them. Don't pretend to be the expert, but what you can be is somebody that's a kind, humble person. Listen to them and redirect them to those that can help, right? And that's one of the biggest things I find is a fault in our society. People have stopped caring about one another, and we toss people away. We become disposable, when in reality, it doesn't have to be that case. We can literally care enough about one another. And every day I'm always waking up. I do gratitude exercises. I do things that are, like, as you said, though, our subconscious and conscious aren't on level playing fields. They're not equal, but I work on that. And I work on that because I want to be the best version of me, so that if I reach that person once in that day, or I'm communicating with somebody, that I'm in the right headspace so that I can understand, empathize. And that's something I talk about quite often. And we'll end this on this. Well, I have a friend, he's, I'm part of an association called the Arte Syndicate, Ed Milet and Andy Frisella. I don't know if you recognize either of their names. If you actually Google Ed Milet, he's one of the top, and Andy, one of the top business podcasters in the world. But he talked about it one day on his posts. What is your superpower? And I think one of the grandest superpowers, and I didn't, and I'm saying this not to pump myself up, but one of my superpowers is empathy and the ability to understand and communicate and feel people's energy. Some days it can be detrimental to me because I take on and I can pick up people's energy. My kids, they'd be on the second floor of my house in their room, and I could pick up on their sadness, or I could pick up on, what was going on in their lives. And we just need to be a society that's more empathetic and caring and compassionate. And we're going to, change the world one person at a time. I'm so tired of people saying, I can't make a difference. Yeah, you can.
Start. Time.
Pardon me?
It's such a good expression, to change one person at a time. And even if the one thing that I say to my clients as they leave, when they're full up of self-confidence and self-esteem and ready to go out there, I say, instead of going out there in the world now thinking, what can I get? What can I get? How about going out into the world and saying, who can I help today? And it changes your whole manner. It changes the whole way that you come across to people. If you just go out with that thought, I'm only going to the shops, who can I help on the way to the shop? And you'll find someone, you'll find somebody, even if it's just reaching up for something in the shop to help them, then that makes them smile, or just smile at people, and it could change the world. And I'm not saying that it's going to be a massive dramatic change, but just doing those little things and going out with a different mentality. It's so important about what you were saying about what you allow into your mind, because with the social media, the news and the hits and everything else, just got to understand your mind is listening to the words that you say or that you allow in, and the pictures that you're allowing into your brain. Everything else is irrelevant. That is what your mind is listening to. And so once you know that, make sure it's good stuff. Why would you ever fill your mind with bad stuff?
Yeah. And that, unfortunately, our society is so hell-bent on keeping people subservient through negativity. And I see what it's doing to people and how they can't escape with my own adult children and my clients, my family. And it's terrible that, everybody's become so, they've got that entitled attitude that, the world owes them something, right? How about you work on you? Don't worry about what the world owes you, and then start helping one person at a time. And it's a long process. I'm a work in project the rest of my life. I work on myself every single day. And I plan on, till the last breath comes out of my body, I'm always going to work at being the best version of me, so that I can give people the best version of them through example, right? That it can be done, and share, and being vulnerable is one of the most difficult things for people that are truly trying to grasp where they're at, and understanding their triggers is another thing I've seen too, is vulnerability. So Nicky, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Never giving up. Well, like you said, it is all about personal development. But for me, if I could have learned one thing about the way our mind works, it is what I just said, which is your mind works on the pictures and the words that you say to yourself. So you would never hear an Olympic athlete at the starting gate saying, yeah, I might try, I might give this a go. Those are weak words. If you want to achieve something in your life, if you don't want to have a boring, mundane life that happens to you, where you are reacting to life and you're in the passenger seat, get into that driver's seat. Anytime there's an obstacle in that road, because that road is not going to be a straight road, it's going to be a road like that. And you're going to come across obstacles. And the universe, I like to see it as the universe is just lobbing these obstacles at you, and it will keep lobbing the same one at you until you've learned how to deal with it. If you give up, you're never going to see what's on the other side. You need to learn the lesson that comes with that obstacle, and then let it go. Most powerful words in our language, let it go. Whatever it is, don't ruminate on it, don't focus on it, let it go, and then move on. What lesson can I learn from that? Great, here we go again, I'm off. And then the universe will just start to open up for you as you raise your level of vibration and you understand that everything is there. Just see what the next step is and just look at life that way rather than, oh, why does this always happen to me? No, this is what lesson can I learn from this? Great, okay, I've learned it, let's go. That's what I would say.
Thank you. What a great message. Well, our time is almost up and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what is the best way to reach you?
Oh, thank you. Well, there's my website, which is Me But Free. So that's MEBUTFREE, mebutfree.com. And I do have a women's group where I focus massively on confidence, self-esteem, relationships, all that sort of thing. So I've done a short link for that, which is mebutfree.com/FB1, so Facebook 1. And that is just a short link, which will actually take you to the Facebook group. And if you are female and want to live a life of passion and purpose, sorry about that, I may do one for men at some point.
That's okay.
But any man can reach out. Obviously, I do absolutely treat men as well. So it's mebutfree.com.
I'm so excited to share this podcast with all my lady friends, my family. Wow, this is so much more than I expected. Thank you so much.
Oh, good. Thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Nicky. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.